Ngayong buwan, pinagtibay ng Korte Suprema ang Enhanced Defense Cooperation Agreement o EDCA. Hindi na raw ito kailangan dumaan sa Senado dahil isa lamang itong executive agreement. Ano nga ba ang benepisyo makukuha ng Pilipinas sa EDCA? At naayon nga ba ito sa mga interes ng bansa? Kaugnay niyan at iba pang issue ay kasama natin si U.S. Ambassador to the Philippines, Philip Goldberg. Good morning, Mr. Ambassador.
Magandang umaga po.
Okay, you did mention EDCA already. What do you think should be the response of America under EDCA when China takes these kinds of unilateral actions?
Well, EDCA isn't directly related to the South China Sea issues. It's about the United States helping its ally, the Philippines, as it goes about building a minimum credible defense, as it brings about change in the 21st century to be able to look out to its maritime space, to be able to do things on humanitarian assistance and disaster relief, bringing about solutions that are the goals of the government and the people here, which is to modernize its armed forces. So that's what EDCA is all about, and about our alliance and the rebalance of the United States to Asia. It's not aimed at any one country or the disagreements in the South China Sea, although some of the ways in which the Philippines will improve its capability to look out into the maritime space has a relationship to the disputes, but it's not aimed at any country or isn't designed to bring about any kind of increased tension.
But do you think there could be increased tension as a result of EDCA, even inadvertently? Because China has said that the U.S. is using the Philippines to intervene or to meddle in maritime disputes in the West Philippine Sea.
Well, it's just not the case. And you can make up whatever scenario you want, but we say it's not the case. Just as it's not the case that when the United States does freedom of navigation operations in the South China Sea, which it's been doing for decades, that's not something new. What's new is what China has been doing in terms of the construction activities, in terms of the planes landing on newly created airstrips. That's what's new, and that's what has caused tension. Those kinds of unilateral steps that I referenced earlier, where solutions aren't brought about because of legal framework, but because one country is trying to assert its claims. And that was true when you raised the question of the Taiwanese visit to the island as well.
Okay, well, you mentioned increased tensions. Of course, what people want to avoid is tensions erupting into a shooting war, even accidentally. Of course, the big question is, in that kind of scenario, what would be the U.S. reaction if there is some kind of shooting war, even whether it's a small one or a big one?
We don't anticipate that, Howie, and that's a hypothetical situation. You'd have to know what the circumstances are and the rest. But what I can say is that the Philippines is a treaty ally of the United States. President Obama, when he was here, said that treaty is ironclad. And so we take very seriously our responsibilities, our obligations under the Mutual Defense Treaty. But any other talk of conflict and the rest, I think, is going farther than the situation warrants, but also depends on the different scenarios.
Okay, I want to talk a little bit about some domestic issues. Well, this week we found out more details about the U.S. involvement in the Mama Sapano operation against Marwan. What was the legal authority of U.S. involvement there?
I think that, first of all, we didn't learn that much new. I think, and I tend to agree with Senator Poe's conclusion that this was largely a restatement of what had come out before. But as far as the United States is concerned and its involvement, we've made clear that we have given assistance to the Philippines through the Armed Forces of the Philippines, through the Special Action Force over time. We had the Joint Special Operations Task Force here until the middle of last year. It had been here for quite a while, giving that kind of assistance. We share information on terrorist issues, and we continue to do so. That's something that I think most people here agree with, just as they agree with the EDCA decision to move forward with a defense relationship. It helps both countries and our mutual security. And everything we do here is in conjunction with and at the request of the Philippine government and the armed forces of the Philippines or the Philippine police. And it's done through agreements between our two countries that are within the legal frameworks of both countries. And I'm not going to talk about specifics of what happened, because unlike what happened in the Senate, we don't talk about specifics like that, very delicate issues in public. We don't think that's the way to handle very intricate and delicate issues. But what I can say in a general sense is this is fully within the framework of agreements between the two countries and the legal frameworks of both countries.
Okay. Well, the reason why I also brought that up was, I mean, I did look through the EDCA and the VFA and the Mutual Defense Treaty. What those mention are the armed forces of the Philippines. This was a Philippine National Police operation. I'm just wondering what part of these agreements would justify assistance to the Philippine National Police when the part of the Philippine government that the U.S. government, promises to assist is the armed forces of the Philippines. There was a big issue between the PNP here and the AFP. The Armed Forces of the Philippines did not even know that this operation was going to happen. But ironically, some parts of the U.S. security forces knew because they were put in the loop by the Philippine National Police.
Howie, we have agreements that cover the police as well, and our cooperation. The Special Action Force has a responsibility to deal with both internal but also international terrorism in its mandate. We have dealt with the Special Action Force for a long time, and it's done within the framework that we have set out, also with the Armed Forces of the Philippines, within that framework. So people should have no doubt that that's been done in a proper manner. And if there are disagreements about, the involvement, I know there are voices within the Philippines that would want no defense relationship between the United States and the Philippines. I don't think that's the majority view. I think most people understand that this is for the mutual security of both countries, that if international terrorists are located in the Philippines, that the Philippines went about taking care of that and addressing that. Unfortunately, there was a tragedy that took place during that operation, but people shouldn't lose sight of the fact that there was also an effort, and a successful one, to take out an international terrorist who was located here in the Philippines.
So there's a separate agreement.
A high-value terrorist.
So there was a separate agreement with the police.
There are separate agreements with the police, and there is an agreement between the United States and the Philippines, we believe, that covers this, and it's within the legal framework that we have set out together. And as I mentioned, everything we do is within that framework with the consent and the request of the Philippine government and the Philippine Armed Forces and the police.
Okay, you did mention the high-profile target, Marwan. Why was he considered such a high-profile target?
Well, he had been involved with groups like Jemaah Islamiyah. We all remember the bombings in Bali in 2002. So this was someone who represented the international jihadist movements, the kind which we are all trying to confront, especially with new threats emerging, threats like ISIL and the continuing threats from Al-Qaeda. Jemaah Islamiyah had been tied to Al-Qaeda and that international jihadist movement. So the Philippines, like other countries, goes about trying to deal with that situation, to make sure that its territory doesn't provide space for those kinds of terrorists. We, as allies of the Philippines and other countries, all cooperate to try to deal with these issues. I think that's natural. I think our peoples in both countries, and in fact in all of the civilized world, respect that and are working together to try to confront it. So that's why I think he had a $5 million rewards for justice price for information leading to his arrest, capture.
Has
Has
that reward been paid?
It's in the process. I don't want to talk too much about it publicly because obviously that's sensitive too, Howie.
And so there's already an identified beneficiary of this?
Let's say it's in process.
Okay. So are there any details, you said there's really nothing new that came out of this week's hearings, but are there any details that you would care to confirm or deny?
Well, this was an operation that was planned and carried out by the Philippines. I mentioned in a very general sense, because I don't want to speak about the specific case of what happened in Mamasapano, because they are sensitive issues. They're issues that for us involve classified information, and we don't talk about those things publicly. But what we did was, and I think it's known, that we helped with casualty evacuation.
Yeah, that was on
but
TV
in a more general sense, and I will just say in a general sense, we've provided information and cooperated with the Philippines in the past on intelligence matters and the rest, and it's all done in a very cooperative basis. But again, I don't want to get into specifics. Your Senate might do that, but we don't do that in open session.
Yeah. But General Napeñas did mention that there were at least 2 U.S. liaison officers in the command post with him while the battle was going on, and they were actually monitoring what was going on in the battle through this real-time intelligence.
You'll have to ask General Napeñas about that. The Philippine government, the Philippine Armed Forces, the Philippine police and the Philippine Senate are well aware of our cooperation together. And I don't think it serves any purpose to rehash these things publicly.
Okay.
At least the specifics. What people should know is that there is cooperation, that all of this is done within a legal framework, and that there are agreements and everything is done consensually or at the request of the Philippine government.
Well, one of the other things that was said that hasn't been disputed is that there was real-time intelligence during that battle being provided by the U.S. government, and presumably part of that real-time intelligence was being was video being shot by he called it an airplane, could be a drone, could be something manned. And then we do have at least stills of a white airplane that supposedly that he described flying overhead during this time. Has this video, well, if true that the U.S. did shoot this video of the battle, has this video been shared, or would the U.S. be willing to share this video? Wouldn't it answer a lot of the questions that still have not been answered?
Howie, I don't know how many times I'll go around this, but I'm not going to discuss the specifics of a very sensitive matter publicly. We do respond to in our discussions with the Philippine government. We also, I think information has been provided to the investigative authorities within the Congress by the government, but it's not up to me to discuss these things publicly, and I don't do them about specific sensitive issues or operations. But again, I go back to the point that I think people understand that there is cooperation between both sides, and people support that cooperation on both sides to provide intelligence information, to provide equipment or support. And that's what the United States does with our ally, the Philippines. That's what the United States does with many countries around the world. But in terms of specific, very sensitive issues, why would we discuss those publicly? That should be done in a way that makes us all accountable and makes us responsible to bodies like Congresses in both our countries. And we have to do that as well. But we usually do that in closed session, and we don't do it through the media.
Okay, I understand. So let's talk about what's going to happen in the near future under EDCA. Let's just clarify, There's an agreement that there will be no permanent U.S. military bases. I think there's still a little bit of some confusion about that, but there is mention of agreed locations.
Right.
Can you clarify that?
Yeah, well, I'm glad you said that, Howie. There are no new bases. Let's stipulate that at the beginning. This is about a different kind of relationship, a new form of cooperation for the 21st century, where we're working together in co-located facilities, Philippine Armed Forces facilities, Philippine government facilities, ones that we agree on together. If we expend military construction funds from the United States, they will be done in a way that is agreed upon by both sides. So all of this is done through cooperation together. And the idea is that we can work together better, we can exercise more, we can have real-time kinds of communication, interoperate together, as the military says, be able to pre-position supplies. All of this aimed on the Philippine side towards creating what I mentioned earlier, this minimum credible defense, which is a goal of the government and the people of the Philippines, being able to handle in a better way 21st century challenges like maritime security, disaster relief, the kinds of things that are important for the Philippines. At the same time, it's important for the United States and for our interests as well, because we're supporting an ally, which is part of our rebalance to Asia, but we're also more present in the region, able to show that there is a security overlay, a security aspect to the rebalance, which is really based on our shared prosperity, our shared economic ties, our shared people-to-people relationships, and the idea for the United States that Asia in the 21st century is a key area of growth, economically, demographically, and that our interests converge, and that we need to be more present. So there's obviously a security aspect to it.
Mm-hmm. Okay, care to give us an idea whether these any construction in these so-called agreed locations will begin this year, and where?
We hope they begin soon. We're in discussions. I mentioned that everything that we do will be done in agreement with the Philippine government, so we are in discussions where some of those co-locations may take place, where we will begin different projects. So we hope that it will begin as soon as possible.
Okay, our elections. I'm sure you and your staff are monitoring the elections. What would you want to be continued in the next administration? What do you think has happened in the last, at least while you've been here, that's been positive, that you want to see continued?
Well, clearly, we think that our bilateral relationship will continue to be a good one, and we want that to continue. In terms of, from a foreign point of view, and when I say that, I mean from abroad, I think many things that have gone on during the Aquino government have been seen as very positive. There's economic growth, and while it may not be as inclusive or sustainable as people want, enough jobs being created, it's a positive direction, and people clearly want to see those kinds of things go forward because we're friends of the Philippines. The agenda of the government is up to the people and the government of the Philippines, but from abroad, we see positive trends in the economy and in some of the actions to take that have taken place in taking on corruption. Things that will move in a positive direction. You know, I saw this morning in the newspaper that Cardinal Tagle made a statement about corruption, and I think in all our countries, in every country of the world, it goes without saying that corruption is an enemy of democracy and therefore is something that should be confronted. And so those are positive trends that I think there are some public-private partnerships that haven't been fully carried out yet. There are all kinds of infrastructure challenges here that we as investors or our investor community would like to see go forward. So there are a lot of things to build on and those positive trends to go forward. Again, I think in terms of our bilateral relationship, which is our primary interest, that we've had a long history of good relations, and that will continue.
Okay, well, the other election campaign that we're looking at, of course, is the U.S. This is happening while our campaign here is going on. But some people are a bit worried about what's going on in the U.S., especially what they're hearing on the Republican side. There's quite a bit of anti-immigrant, anti-Muslim, anti-foreign sentiment being aired, and some of the candidates who are airing these sentiments are some frontrunners. Should Filipinos be worried? Should Filipinos in the United States be worried?
I don't think so. I think you'll see the process play out, Howie. We'll see exactly how democracy works and what the outcome will bring. In the meantime, I think that the Obama administration has been very clear about where we are on immigration and the steps that we need to take. Not to be afraid of immigration, and that is what makes up our great country. And there are going to be disagreements from time to time politically, but I think the vast majority of Americans, as well as the political spectrum, supports immigration. Clearly, there are differences about how to go about that and protecting the borders and the rest. But I think we need to let the democratic process play out and see how it goes. But I don't think people need to be worried about it.
Well, one of the things the State Department and the U.S. Embassy has been doing in the Philippines for a long time is encouraging educational exposure in the United States. I understand there's going to be a U.S. educational fair that's going to happen?
There is, on February 16th, from 2 to 6 p.m. at the Sofitel. People who want to register for it can get in touch with us through our public affairs section. I think there is a Facebook page that you can go to.
Is this just for college, potential college students or high school?
It's undergraduate and graduate students. We've always had a program where we've tried to encourage people to access higher education in the U.S. You're a good example, Howard. You're a graduate of a U.S. university. Because you see people who come back and contribute to Philippine society are very successful. People who have taken advantage of what we think is the finest system of higher education in the world. And so there are all kinds of opportunities, but to navigate our system isn't all that easy. So we have 20 universities, colleges coming to talk to students.
Oh, they're sending representatives?
They're sending representatives, and they'll talk about, as we do through a counselor at our public affairs section, we'll talk about how you go about accessing scholarships and resources, and encouraging people to at least look into it. It may not be for everybody, it may not be possible for everybody, but at the moment, to give you an idea, Howie, there are only about 3,000 Filipino students at the undergraduate and graduate level in the U.S.
In the entire United States?
And to give you a comparison, the Chinese have 250,000. Now, a lot of that is paid for by the government of China. But I think you can see the value that the Chinese see in higher education in the U.S. in various disciplines, including science and technology, engineering, and so forth, where we excel. And that's true in the humanities, the arts, law, and so it goes across the board. And so what we're encouraging people to do is at least take a look into it. There are opportunities. Some of the financing is difficult, and we understand that, but we want to talk to people about how you might be able to go about it.
Well, of course, that's a major consideration for people even considering studying overseas. So, but you did mention scholarships. So would you encourage middle-income students, even low-income students to
take a look?
To go there?
There are a lot of colleges and universities that also want to diversify their student bodies, to have representatives from places where they don't have students at the moment. So take a look into it. Nothing ventured or
all right,
lost.
February 16?
February 16th at the Sofitel
Hotel. Okay.
And I think there is, they may be showing on the screen, there it is,
yeah, there it is.
The Education USA Fair. So you can contact us and register for it.
All right. Well, thank you very much for organizing that and for your time this morning and sharing.
It's always a pleasure.
Your perspective. Thank you, U.S. Ambassador Philip Goldberg.
Thank you.